Welcome to Drink Naked. My name is Stewie Robinson from Naked Wines. On this podcast, I'll be talking with a legend, an absolute rock star from the world of wine, and hopefully get the answers to what drives them to do exactly what they do. Along the way, you'll learn a lot about wine and the many exciting things about it, but especially you'll learn about how the winemaker, when free to express their creativity, can make something truly awe-inspiring and life-changing. Today on Drink Naked, all the way from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, as we've already discussed, is not that far because here we are in Manly, Sydney. We do welcome the dynamic duo of Damien Stevens and Jodie Belleville from the much-loved Fuzzy and May. Welcome.
Thanks, Stu.
Thanks, Stu. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. I just want to start with this because I found this very resonating when I actually read your backstory. Your first ever Semillon, the very first Semillon you produced in 2010, won both the Marshall Flannery Trophy for the best current vintage Semillon and the Lindemans Trophy for the best current vintage dry white in show at the Hunter Valley Wine Show, correct?
Correct, yes.
I mean, that is phenomenal in itself, but I was just thinking also, you would be forgiven for thinking at that time, we've just scooped the pool. We've just knocked these massive behemoth icons out of the ring with our very first gig. You would be forgiven for thinking, oh, this is an absolute lark. This is easy. Korea, here we come. Did you think that at the time?
No.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I suppose it was a huge accolade for us, and we, as you said, to top some of the big boys in our first run out was very exciting.
Yeah.
But definitely not in terms of thinking that here we go, we're on a roll for the next 5-10 years, sort of thing. So yeah, it was very exciting.
Because you were mentioning before that the actual wine was ready, it was finished, it was a finished wine, but the actual packaging wasn't really finished, was it?
Not quite there, not quite there. So yeah, part of the process within wine shows generally is that you do have to supply some of the wines that do win into the show for the exhibitors tasting and for the lunch, so for the presentations. And we didn't have a label printed at that stage. We had a design, so we were quickly down to the local printers to get labels printed up onto the tables for the next day for the tasting.
Wow. And so that was 9 years ago, in 2010, when you actually won that award, that Best in Show. Just to bring us up to speed, what's happened in the interim? You know, what has changed in your lives in the last 9 years since that first super gong?
Oh God, so many things. So many things. We, I guess this year is our 10th year, really, because we started with Shiraz in 2009. So this is our 10th year of trading, which is no small feat on its own in this business, in any business, it's a small family business. So that's something where we've started celebrating with family, friends, club members, all those kind of things. I guess our brand that started all this for us is Heart and Hunter, and they're the wines that you're referring to, the Semillons, and it's gone from strength to strength. We have increased our varieties. We turned it into a real job. It was just a side job for all those interim years at the beginning. We both worked for other people, and then we decided we'd give it a red hot crack. We opened a cellar door. We had a couple of children along the way, and now we have this business that we're very proud of. We have incredible staff to help us on our journey, and we're pretty proud of the wines that we've made in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
And I guess it's sort of phase one, really.
Yep.
I think.
Absolutely, with multiple phases all through that stage.
Yeah. That's a very generalised, broad statement of what's happened in the 10 years, but I personally never thought we'd end up in this position. I very much believed it would be a side business, and I never saw myself as a business owner or, working for myself. I always thought it would just be something we'd have, never realising that we'd end up doing this together and running a business.
Yeah.
So that was a massive game changer for us when we decided to turn it into something full-time and proper, if you like, rather than just, this little side business that we had for all those years. So it's that was a massive step, a really big step.
It is a dream come true, really, isn't it? or coming through?
Coming through. So. We're getting to the dreaming bit.
So.
Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
Because frankly, it's just hard work, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It's long hours working for yourself, especially during vintage, which we're just going through at the moment, or at the tail end of.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the other side and pushed for us probably a little bit harder to go out on our own, and things like with the cellar door and certainly with our initial contacts through Naked. I remember stalking Pol on social media for some time until I could find a contact and have a bit of a discussion about how Naked Wines worked, and so that was I think from our initial contacts it was probably three years I think before we got something over the line. So,
is that right?
Yeah.
All good things take a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
if you keep persisting, we'll get
Knock
there.
it on that door.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be clear, you mentioned Heart and Hunter, which is your day job.
Yeah.
But you also have an exclusive range through Naked that you make just for Naked Wines, which is Fuzzy in May.
Correct. Yes.
Nice little segue there.
Yeah.
You know.
Perfectly moved.
So let's just talk about we'll get this out of the way, so people know what's going on. But Fuzzy in May, where does that label come from?
It's our little girls, actually. It's really quite difficult to come up with a brand and a label, especially when you're trying to do it yourself and you're not paying designers and creators and the people that have all these amazing ideas. So it's actually the middle names of our two girls.
Right.
Fuzzy is a bit of a play on. It's not actually her real middle name, but it kind of could be. We kind of call her that anyway, since she was before she was born, actually. And May is the middle name of our second daughter. So it just sort of worked. The more we went around in circles, the more we went, yeah, let's just do that. And we've kind of done the Where's Wally of them on the front label, and especially on the white label, there's two little heads.
Oh, there are two?
Yeah, one's got curly hair and one's got longer, wavy hair.
It is.
You've never seen that before,
I
Stu.
haven't never seen it before.
There you go. Where's Fuzzy and May.
Two little kids in the label.
Yeah, there you go. So that's what we decided to do. I think it's unique, it's playful, it's bright, it's fun and engaging, and I think so many comments we get from our gorgeous angels are about our labels and how incredible they are and how bright and fun, and we
totally
love them.
unique.
We just love them. They are really unique. They are really unique,
Did you actually do them yourself?
No, I'm not that clever.
No.
No, I would love to claim. No, we have a beautiful lady by the name of Meredith Gaston who designed them for us, and she is
local artist?
Australian artist. She's based in Victoria.
Yep.
And she's super talented and came to the party and created the couple of labels for us. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had a Hunter winemaking team here. So here's your chance to tell us what is totally unique about the Hunter Valley in New South Wales, and why do you make it your spiritual home in terms of making wine?
A whole different podcast there, Stu. Look, the Hunter is so unique because of where it's situated. So obviously we're quite close to Sydney, as we've said. So sort of 2 hours from Sydney. Traditionally, the first grape growing area within New South Wales and Australia, and lucky enough to have a climate that suits Semillon. So that is the key, I suppose, unique point with the Hunter is that not only sort of within the Hunter, but more within Australia and the world, is that the Semillon that comes out of the Hunter Valley is so unique in terms of its ability to age and the longevity that you can get and the transformation that you go through. So as a young Semillon, you're looking at very light citrus flavours that come through. Traditionally, it dulls off a little bit, sort of around that 4 to 5 year period. And then it comes back out and has lovely toasty ginger characters that can come through and still hold those citrus as well. Low alcohols, also gives it the ability to age. Great seafood wine, just perfect for Australian environment, really. And then in terms of Shiraz, stylistically, we're quite different to the rest of the country. Again, it's a lower alcohol, that helps it age also, more of a savoury style. And I think with our Chardonnays that are coming out of the Hunter now are a lot more refined than where we used to be sort of even 5-7 years ago. So more on that lighter style Chablis end of the spectrum, that you've got lovely fruit, nice balance that comes through with oak, and a little bit of creaminess in the texture that comes in.
You've actually mentioned the two varieties that are really the backbone and the hallmark of the region. I want to go back just a little bit to Semillon again. For those people who don't get it, or have never tried it, I mean, and you've touched on about why it's so unique, but there's the esteemed English wine critic, writer, reviewer called Jancis Robinson, right, who actually says the Semillon that comes from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales is Australia's wine gift to the world. Why? Why is it unique? Apart from what you said, I mean, it is completely unoaked, right?
Yes.
So it comes down to the actual purity of the fruit resource. What is it about the region, the soil and the region and the climate, that allows it to age for 20 years plus when it doesn't do that in other places?
I think it's all of those things, don't you think? It's just such a damn fine drink. Yeah. People that aren't drinking Semillon need to drink Semillon.
Because it's your favourite, isn't it?
It's my absolute favourite.
Okay.
My absolute favourite.
Tell me why.
It is always in our fridge at home. I probably drink more of our product than I should, but it's always in the fridge. Yeah. Because it goes with everything. Hot summer afternoons, goes with whatever food you can put in front of it. You can enjoy a glass of Hunter Sem without doubt. And I tend to drink Semillon younger, up to that 3 years is I get the most enjoyment out of it. I do enjoy seeing how they age and getting some bottle age on them. But for me, it's crisp, it's clean, the flavours are outstanding. If you're a Riesling lover, then you will love Semillon. If you're a Sauvignon Blanc drinker, you'll love Semillon. It's in a similar spectrum, I guess. The what you can eat with it, how you fit it into your lifestyle, the food matches, all of those things are comparable. So people have to get amongst it and they have to try it. And I think the Hunter Valley as a whole and as an industry, we've been a lot better in promoting ourselves and talking it up and showcasing what we can actually do in the last, especially since we've been involved in doing that very thing for ourselves in the last 10 years. And people respect it and have warmed to it. And I think, the uptake for us that we've seen, especially, people coming into cellar door, you can get them in front of you and show them what it is. And, 9 times out of 10, they love it. They absolutely love it. And I think that's the key, is getting people in front of you. It's hard picking off a shelf when you don't know what it is. I think Semillon needs to have someone talk you through it.
Yeah.
Talk you through the flavours. Talk you through what you can eat with it. I think that makes such a big difference. So we go out to trade shows, we do pop-up tastings in bars, we do whatever we can to put ourselves and our staff in front of clients. Taste it. Just have a drink and taste the flavours. It's good wine.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I work in the field of brand and marketing, and there's a saying which is, perception is everything. And so clearly with Semillon there is a preconceived notion in a lot of people that it is this or tastes like this, whatever. And it's like you're saying, get them in front of it and it will just blow their perceptions out of the water.
And the last, say, 10 years or so, there's been a shift in how young Semillons are made.
Yes.
So there was sort of prior to that, young Semillon was very tight and acidic and hard to get your head around.
Yep.
So styles that are coming out now are a lot more juicy, a lot more giving. There's a lot more sort of vineyard influence. So we're picking quite a bit later than where we would have in the past. So you're getting a lot more citrus, fruit flavour coming through as a young wine, and you can enjoy it as that young style, as Jodie so frequently does. Or you can, if you've got the time, you can put it down and get those age characteristics. And that's what Jancis is talking about, is the age Semillons and just the longevity of, like, we're talking 25, 30 years under cork.
Amazing.
So it'll be interesting to see with the different closure. I think we'll get even longer and still hold those flavours that come through.
Because the other thing I think is acidity that scares people, because as a young wine, the acidity, it's there. That's what that's what gives them such time in bottle, such beautiful length. But and that diminishes as time goes on. So I think, a young Semillon does scare people that have, that they don't always like that, acid, that you get. but they're not, as Damo said, they're not like that so much. I mean, you can still get them. They are still made with quite low pHs as such and acidity, but they're more approachable now, I think, than ever, Semillons, definitely.
So dare I say, and shut me down, but winemakers are getting smarter about actually making the style, the variety?
Oh, definitely. From where it was, to be aware of what consumers like and the feedback that we get, absolutely. Yep. So sort of wines that were being made 10, 15 years ago, like they were just so tight and ungiving, and that has changed. So there's been a good push from sort of a younger generation coming through. I think that people are aware now that, you know, people in Manly and sort of in a city, we don't have cellars anymore. Like
no room.
There's no room. So I think stats like 98% of wine is consumed within 48 hours of being purchased, things like that.
Yes.
People are aware of how people drink and the flavours and textures and where they drink as well. Like we talk about acidity possibly having a negative. There's also a huge positive with that it goes so well, like fresh acidity in wine matching with food just gives such a lovely clean palate. So the fact that people now are more drinking out and having wines with restaurants is a big change.
Absolutely. Before I asked you about something, I said, about Semillon, I said some people don't get it. Well, I've got to be honest. I mean, I was probably one of those people who didn't get it. I could appreciate it, and then I had a bit of an epiphany because Bruce Tyrrell handed me a bottle of his 1999 Semillon, and he said, "Try this." And I went, and it was an eye-opening wine. I went, and this was only 5 years ago, and it was pure as anything. The purity of fruit was still there after 15 years. I just went, this is extraordinary with that secondary stuff going on too. So slight toastiness. I just went, this it's just phenomenal.
And looking at that wine, that's still got another 20 years plus
before
you think it's just still a baby.
Yeah.
And what's incredible is because a lot of people know that in the winemaking journey, you can show your handprint on the wine and do stuff and pull levers and da-da-da-da-da. But with Semillon, it's really down to the purity of the fruit, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. So with, I suppose, more than any other variety, when you decide to pick your fruit and how you go through that process, ends up what you get in the bottle more than Chardonnay. You have so many twists and turns along the way, same with Shiraz in terms of oak choices and things like that. But with Semillon, we use a very neutral yeast, so we use a champagne yeast, which is a pretty standard thing across Hunter Semillons. As you said before, there's no oak treatment, so it's all in stainless steel, so it's very, I suppose, clean in that environment. And then after that, you're only really sort of looking at bottling times and things like that, and you get one shot at it per year, and that's why you get so obsessed about the variety. Is you do get literally that one shot every year, and that's it. Compared to brewing or something, you can make changes on a daily basis, but you wait another 12 months before you can go, I would have done this a little bit different, it's quite fun and obsessive at the same time.
And not stressful at all.
It's like,
I just want to hark on a little bit. I mean, you are both winemakers. You work as a team. You've actually accumulated multiple trophies, which of course everyone probably knows a trophy is actually higher than a gold best in class. But you didn't just suddenly, as the new generation of Hunter Valley winemakers, just appear from nowhere. You've both got backstories. Can you just let us in a little bit? Jodie, for instance, you first. I mean, what was happening prior to you establishing your... Well, actually, where did you meet? That's a good start.
In the Hunter.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we did.
Why do I believe you?
Yeah. I know. Stranger things have happened. No, I grew up in Taree, up on the Mid-North Coast, and then spent sort of 10 years after school in Melbourne doing various things across various industries, as you do, but always wanted to get back to some kind of study. I spent a lot of time behind bars and serving other people good booze.
Sounds like you did time. Never told me about this, mate.
No, not those kind of bars. Customer service, of course, was what I was referring to. And watching people bring in all these beautiful bottles, and I was, you taste things and you see things, and I went, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So I just sort of fell into winemaking, as you do. Mm-hmm. It was never pre-planned. I have no family connection whatsoever, but it was just one of those random decisions, and away I went. It's sort of how I landed in winemaking, and I went back to Wagga and did a little bit as an internal student, and then that was far too difficult and not cost effective at all. So I moved to the Hunter not very long after. Did a couple of overseas vintages in between, and then moved permanently to the Hunter in 2004, I think. So yeah, been home ever since.
Making wine in the Hunter.
Yeah. So making wine there since 2003. So yeah.
Damien,
it's a good place to be.
Yeah, a similar sort of journey in terms of it never being a career path that I'd sort of considered until later in life, and hospitality based ever since I left school. Travelled around with sort of the company I was within Australia, and then went overseas. Came back around about that same time, so 03. Landed in Newcastle and thought, what do I do in Newcastle? There's either mines or wine. I don't really like mines, so tried my hand into the winery, and just got in contact with a few people, and that was the first step to go in from there.
Can you mention any of the wineries you've actually done time in?
Time behind the bars. I started with Brokenwood as cellar hand in 2003. I was with those guys for 3 years, I think. And then I went to work for Peter Hall at McGuigan's. I was his assistant winemaker for a couple of years. And then I spent some time in, where did I go? New Zealand. Just had a little bit of a blank there. New Zealand, I did Hawke's Bay. I did a vintage in Hawke's Bay, and then went down south for another sort of 6 weeks after that. Germany, I think that's all.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Oh, no, it's sort of spread out over, and Italy, of course. How could I forget Italy? We that was probably the highlight, I guess. So
I was there.
Because you were there, that's right. And that's where Fiano, the love of Fiano, comes from Italy. We were there in Italy in 2006 in Campania, down in the south, and lived and worked with a family for 2 months, and amazing, just amazing. We could live there, move there in a heartbeat if we didn't have all this to keep us anchored to Australia, but incredible country, incredible people.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
And that, just speaking of Fiano, you're actually making some Fiano too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's sort of, so that was 2006, and then it took us till 2015 was the first time we could get our hands on some in the Hunter. And we've been making it ever since, just little parcels along the way. But it's turned very quickly into one of our favourites and one of our customers' favourites. It was the variety of Campania where we actually lived and worked, so we kind of make it in the style that we were shown and whatnot. And it's all those Italian Mediterranean varieties. They're such good food wines, and they're just meant to be enjoyed. And we have certainly tried to do that and share them with as many people as we can. So it's been a real joy to be able to source Fiano to start with in the valley. There's handful, I don't know, maybe 10 or so producers doing it now, but I think after focusing on Semillon, Chardonnay, Shiraz for so long in the valley, it's nice now that growers and as an industry we've sort of have started to work out that we can do other things quite well. All those Mediterranean varieties, they like the heat and the wet and all those things that the Hunter Valley is
famous for.
So, they should work.
So, I mean, this is an interesting point of conversation, because you are new generational pioneers in the Hunter Valley.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, run with it. It's good. Surrounded by, the likes of, the icons of, Tyrrells and dynasties, Tyrrells, McGuigan, et cetera. You are shaping the future of the oldest wine region in Australia, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And clearly, there has to be change, and you have mentioned Fiano. What other varieties are the newer growers and winemakers bringing into the valley? apart from Fiano? Or will it always be Shiraz, Chardonnay and Semillon going forward for the region?
Oh, that'll always stay.
That's the backbone.
And so
Yeah.
I hope it does. Margan's been doing great things for a long time in Brogue, hasn't he?
With different varieties, and again, generally sort of those Italian varieties.
Yeah.
We, as we were saying before, sort of food wines are a big part of everyone's culture now, and I think that's where he's based a lot of his style, and sort of that those varieties lend themselves so well to that sort of community that you get.
Yeah.
But Tempranillo's another one that's been quite popular. Verdello's, as in the whites, is something that's always been a popular variety as a table wine. So, there's Fiano's probably the newest white to make a bit of a push through. And as Jodie was saying, climate-wise, it just seems to suit the hunter quite well.
Yeah.
It ripens a lot later than the other whites. We're sort of a month past Semillon and Chardonnay before it's actually ripe. So for us, it sort of didn't really make sense because that's normally when we get that rain. But again, it just seems to handle rain well, and it's got that thick skins that can hold it. So yeah, there's definitely more sort of experimentation coming through on whites than reds. Yeah.
But they'll always be those sort of Mediterranean type varieties.
I think so, yeah. Just that climate that seems to suit it.
I mean, just for those people who don't understand, I guess, is, you even if you have a love of a certain grape variety, it does not mean that it will necessarily grow in your backyard, will it?
No,
I mean,
exactly.
It's got to be suited to where you're actually putting the roots down.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. There was, I think, in years gone by, there have been plantings of, Merlot and Cabernet and a lot of Pinot and all those other red varieties in the Hunter. And, there are parcels that do work in certain locations within the Hunter, but as a general rule, I think a lot of those plantings have been pulled out over the years because they don't always work in every vineyard, in every location within the valley. There, apart from, the select few that can get it right and do it really well. I think people are paying more attention to their land, their location. The climate and what it's doing has changed horrendously and so much in the last 10 years. So that's been a big factor for growers, I think.
I mean, this sense of place, is very, very important. I mean, what are the French, terroir. And, the Hunter Valley is clearly very, very unique in its terroir and its sense of place.
Yeah, it's nice now that we're all thinking about it. I mean, I'm sure it was always thought about, but there seems to be just a slight twist on where things... and especially these other newer varieties where they can grow, and the best way to establish a vineyard with these newer varieties. I think there's, a lot more thought being put into those new roots, if you like, which is a good thing.
I mean, amazing, when I first got into the wine is, years and years ago, I read the story about how the Hunter Valley was actually, discovered as a wine growing region, sort of kind of by sheer fluke.
Yeah.
And the whole, to me, as a young bloke back then, the romance around, it was discovered by fluke. They put down these canes and they flourished, and here we are, years later, and it still is one of the top regions in Australia for growing those varieties. That blows my mind.
It's pretty amazing.
It is, isn't it?
Just as you said, it was a fluke. It was sheer luck that grape growing community started out there, and it was luck that the weather was good. The weather was good for grape growing, and the soil types and the climate match, because there was none of the, I suppose, investigation that we do now in terms of digging soil pits, looking at annual charts for rainfall and temperature and how these measure up for similar latitudes and things like. There's a lot of consideration now before you look at it on an alternate variety, whether that would actually work in that area. They would have just stuck them
down and gone.
Hope for the best.
Give it a bit of water and let's go. And it paid off.
Certainly did. I mean, I've read somewhere, Damien, that one of your favourite varieties out of the Hunter is Chardonnay.
Yes. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Hunter Valley was responsible for actually producing the very first commercial Chardonnay.
Think so. Yeah. In terms of Australia,
in terms of Australia.
Yep.
And I love Chardonnay that comes out of the Hunter. We've talked about Semillon from the Hunter. What is it about Chardonnay from the Hunter that is actually totally unique? Ooh.
Chardonnay.
I don't think Chardonnay is unique. I think Chardonnay is possibly why I like it is it's an opposite to Semillon, whereas Semillon we've said that you're very much hands off. Chardonnay you can manipulate a bit more in terms of flavours and styles and characteristics that come through. So currently I think there is a wave of sort of newer producers that are picking a little bit earlier, different fruit flavours that are coming through. We're not going through as much malolactic fermentation. So there is a lot more sense of place, I think, now in terms of Chardonnays that are coming out of the Hunter than what there possibly was in the past. There's still some great styles that continue to come out of the Hunter that are those bigger styles, but I think there's probably a keener eye on lighter, more elegant wines that you can get, and that you can still show the fruit flavours that are coming through that are similar to what you see in the vineyard. So for us, it's sort of to go and find a site that we think has lovely fruit, then cover it up with oak and artefact as such. It seems a little bit counterintuitive. So we like to try and preserve what we see in the vineyard, that gets to our angels, and at the end of the day is what we see is what we're presenting at sort of 12 months down the track.
Yeah.
So
I just want to talk a little bit about your winemaking philosophies. Do you have a winemaking philosophy?
I guess we do. I guess we, as Damien just said, what we see in the vineyard is what we want to see at the end of the day in bottle. We don't want to, we try not to cover everything up. We want to, if we're tasting fruit in the vineyard, we want to see that in bottle. I guess that's the basis of it. We're not trying to create, we don't create and meddle too much. Obviously there are things that you need to do to preserve product, but we try and show sense of place as best we can. A lot of our wines are single site wines, so there's a very small batch, and they're from specific sites around the valley that we've chosen because of the quality of fruit that we get from that vineyard, and that's what we want to see at the end of the day. So I guess that's the backbone of our philosophy more than anything. Do you think?
Yeah, look, it's we've always been quite minimal in terms of intervention. Then Chardonnay that I've just said is one of those ones that you can be a little bit more experimental and put your thumbprints on a bit more. But that vineyard to bottle connection has always been important to us, and whether that's Semillon, Shiraz, Fiano, whatever it is, we like to be able to see the wine at the end of the day and go, that's how I saw it there, and this is where we thought we'd get to in terms of a style. Yeah.
And especially with the single site wines, now that we have a few years under our belt, we can go back and look at verticals from the same vineyards, and you see the same characteristic in every one of those wines, and that's a pretty heartwarming thing to see as a winemaker. It's like, I think we did all right there, because that's you might look at 5 vintages side by side, and you can pick the characteristic from the vineyard that you were looking for in the very beginning.
It's amazing.
And it's there all the way, and that's a pretty special thing.
Do you have your own vineyards?
No, we don't.
So therefore you must have good relationships with growers, right?
We do. Yeah. It's really important. The backbone of our business, most definitely. Yeah. And we go back to those same growers. We don't chop and change our minds and whatnot. We try and do our best by our growers, because they do the best by us, and giving us outstanding fruit every year. It's not an easy region to grow fruit at certain times. We go back to the same parcels year after year as much as we can, absolutely.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, these relationships with growers that you've actually got now over many years, do they, knowing full well that you're going to be, repeat business for them over, do they allow you to treat the vineyards as your own? Like, do you make the call on the harvest?
On the harvest, we do, Yep. So, look, a lot of these people that we deal with are purely viticulturalists and grape growing families. So we are very happy to let them do their thing and get fruit across the line. And but in terms of picking, that always comes back to us. In terms of advice on viticulture and things like that.
Yeah, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Yeah.
I haven't actually met too many husband and wife winemaking teams where you are both award-winning winemakers, I've got to ask, do you always agree?
No.
No.
Not always. Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our moments.
I'm talking in the winery, you know.
Oh, right. Sorry, yeah.
Throw things, no.
No, definitely not. We don't always agree. We'll, I suppose, looking at final blends on Semillon and things like that, that's like the rest of the production is pretty unified in terms of where we know we're going to go from A to B until that last moment pre-bottling.
Yeah.
That's when the gloves come off.
It's fantastic.
And then I'm always right.
Of course.
So, he just agrees
Someone's
and
got to
says,
be.
yes,
Yeah,
Jodie.
right, So, we can go through tastings that'll be 3 hours and then...
Because I just have to go back and have another look. You've got to make sure you get it right,
Right.
Stu. You get one shot.
I know.
You don't want to go through all that work and then get it wrong at the very end. So, takes a bit of time.
So there's a little bit of haggling at the end every now and then, but other than that, we tend to sort of go pretty well. It's just that last stage that is healthy discussion.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So in terms of your winemaking exclusives for Naked Wines, at the moment you do a Shiraz and a Chardonnay and a Semillon and occasionally a Rosé. Is there anything else that you'd like to actually do?
Not really sure about that one. Weren't prepped on that one, Stu.
Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, right.
Look, in terms of, I think what we can do well for Naked and for the Angels are those key varieties that come out of the Hunter. Mm-hmm. And we've always said within Naked that we would only do we were based in the Hunter, so that we'd do Hunter fruit. Not something I'd really thought about before, but look, they're probably our sort of 4 key varieties. We're pretty excited to do our first release of Rosé that's come out. So that's been keeping us busy and sourcing fruit for that and looking at different options to go into that.
And that went really well, didn't it?
That's I think that's probably the quickest that we've ever sold out of anything.
Really?
It raced
I
out.
think that was quicker than the Shardy, and that first Shardy we did was quite exciting.
Yeah.
That seemed to scoot out the door pretty quickly. But
I just read some of the comments from the Angel customers, and I just saw strawberries and cream, strawberries and cream, strawberries and cream.
That was just Pol, I think. But look, if we've spoken about that we do like sort of those Mediterranean varieties, and that'll probably be where we'd go. Possibly look at another red in the mix or something like that. Yeah.
So you've been with Naked Wines now for 4 years.
I'm sure it's 4.
Yeah. Is it everything you thought it would be, or has there been any surprises? Or put it this way, what's the most endearing thing about making exclusive wines for Naked Wines?
I think it's been the communication, the comments, and the immense love from the people that come back to us, because you don't get love like that at Cellar Door. It's a different kind of love that you get from face-to-face contact with people at a Cellar Door. I think the content that we get and the feedback we get about our wines, it's quite an instant thing a lot of the time, and it's 95% plus positive.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And that wasn't what I was expecting. That I had really no concept of that whatsoever, and that's really blown us out of the water.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And the volume of it, like the sheer. I think from the first one that we had through, that we released with the Chardonnay, and just once the phone starts pinging when something's new's been released, it's all quite exciting, and it hasn't dulled down.
No, not at all.
I think you do get. We're obviously very proud of the wines that we do, and I think I noticed this year during vintage some being very tired and late at night, and then all of a sudden you'd get a positive comment come through, and you're like, okay, you're going for a bit longer here. It's all good. Then somebody was like, I didn't like that one. I was like, let's have to have a rest. But it does. I think with all the winemakers, if you love your craft, you take it to heart, and you're never going to please everyone with a style or a wine, or no matter how good it is. So that's something that was very important that we both discussed early on that we, that's it's fabulous, but there's going to be people that we don't hit the mark with. But that's instant communication, and you'd look at looking at times of things coming through, and you think, they probably just finished that bottle by the look of that comment. You're commenting about 11 o'clock at night. With, second bottle, good work. It's you're really part of that journey with them as well. So it's fun.
Excellent. I just wanted to thank you very much for coming in today, for abandoning your children from the Hunter Valley.
They are at school, it's all right.
Yeah, I know. And as I always do when I finish off a Drink Naked session, 5 questions in 5 seconds.
Ooh.
Which always takes a lot longer than 5 seconds. And I should have learnt by now, but I still keep asking this one as the first one, and I will. Jodie, what's your favourite wine?
Semillon.
Which one?
2017. Fuzzy and made.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to talk about your own brand. Yes. Damien, what's your favourite wine?
Shiraz, the reserve.
Oh, look.
There you go. It's right there.
There.
Let's crack one. Which one do you want to try?
Oh, we'll go for white. It's not quite 12, is it?
It's jeepers. No, it's 1 minute to 12.
1 minute to 12. Go for Chardonnay.
Okay,
Chard.
done.
Go Chard.
Let's try the Chardonnay. The sound of a Hunter
Even
Valley
sounds
Chardonnay.
good.
Yeah, it does, doesn't
Yep.
it? It's 2018. When was this bottled, do you think?
This was bottled in
you.
October. So,
Cheers.
cheers. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming in.
Cheers.
Okay, talk us through this. What do we got? Oh, wow.
Citrus,
Yep.
vanilla, a little bit of honeysuckle.
Beautiful colour.
Yeah, it's pretty crisp, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
Slightly.
you can really notice in sort of when you see good fruit coming through the door, and you're very conscious of this time of year that you've got a lovely, bright, luminous green that comes through. So a little bit of time with oak, you start to go into those golden colours. But ideally we're looking for something that's very light in terms of colour, and that's a bit of an indication to us that you're going to get some longevity coming through as well.
And what would you pair this with ideally, food-wise?
Oh, the Chardonnay. What could I eat right now? Perhaps some, what were we talking about in the car? Some sushi? Yeah, some sushi, some really nice fresh sashimi would be quite lovely, I think. Would be one thing I could eat right now.
And I think people are a lot happier drinking white wines with anything these days. So whether you're pastas or even red meats, you can break all the rules that our parents had. You know,
Totally.
There's no issue with that, because as long as you've got enough flavour to sort of match in, tends to be more a rule now than white and red and red. So.
Absolutely. I mean, when I do wine time with our crew here, I'm always just smashing the rules. You know, basically flavour, palate weight, flavour weight. You know, just matching those two weights.
Yeah, and back the other way as well. I mean, you look at those lighter styles of red.
Yeah,
Hunter Shiraz is another good example of it. That anything that you think you could match in with Pinot, then you've really got that sort of similar flavour profile and palate weight that comes through from Hunter Shiraz also.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've gone over the 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
That was one question, 50 seconds. So, your favourite wine moment, Jodie?
Wine moment. Oh, that's
Where were
tricky.
you when you had your favourite wine drinking moment?
What about just any old favourite wine moment?
Sure.
The end of a super long crush day during vintage is always a favourite wine moment. End of the day with a crew, could be 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Right, yeah.
Something cool from the fridge, that's always a favourite wine moment.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Favourite wine moment? I think would have been in Italy. I can't
Of course
remember
he
where.
goes for something really
Yeah,
good. I go for something totally lame.
So just in one of the old towns in Piedmont, and we were drinking random Barolos,
Yeah.
boar and fettuccine.
He even
for
remembers
dinner.
what we were eating. Man, mine was so lame.
Etched in my mind.
I might have to go again. Can I go again? No.
Yeah. Actually, no. Actually, yeah, all right. What's
No, it's fine.
I knew that one of you was
It's
going to mention
fine.
Italy. Yeah, there we go. Favourite driving song?
'Cause I'm free.
Can we edit?
Yeah, no. No,
come
well,
on.
did you listen to that on the
all
way
I've
down
got.
today?
No, Damien doesn't like songs like that.
Oh,
It's the songs I have in the car with the girls.
Favourite driving song?
yeah.
No, I'm a Triple J fan, so I got to pretty mix it up. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I listen to Triple J.
Yeah, you can still sing.
Yeah.
No, I definitely don't
No,
sing.
we take care of the singing.
Damien, what do you want to be doing in 5 years' time?
Retiring. Nice. It's good to have a
young.
goal.
5 years, yes. I'm with him.
Yeah.
I suppose for the next sort of 5 years, for us, it's about growing our brands and getting, I suppose, to a position where we can sort of enjoy and experiment and travel and taste a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my answer
That's
too.
yours too,
Yeah.
isn't it? I could
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah, that's my answer too.
And just to wrap it up, best thing about making wine for Naked Angel customers. You can answer this together.
Together, for me, it's the interaction and the
Oh,
feedback.
yes, of course it is. Yeah, we said that
it's,
before.
Yep,
Yeah.
you did.
Yep.
So no, that part of the experience is, I suppose, really a good tool for us as well to see what people enjoy, what they don't. To get that instant feedback is very rare. As I think Jodie said, from what we experienced in Cellador, I think there's people are happier to give positive comments and negative ones, which actually help us as well. Not so much, but if somebody's sort of giving us feedback that I think they're really happy that the environment and how it all works, that there's you don't like every wine, but I think it's good to get such a big, broad range of opinions, and that helps us sort of steer where we want to go.
And that's what we're all about, Naked Wines. We just like to get out of the way and put the wine lover in touch with the winemaker and, communication. And
Yeah.
it's just great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really unique thing. Really unique. We love it.
I love that. Just to finish on a note, you've talked about your cellar door. I've been there when it just was virtually
did,
just
that's
opened.
right, That's right.
Give it a plug. Where is it?
Heart and Hunter, Cellar Door, on Deasy's Road in Colburn, so in the very heart of wine country in the Hunter Valley.
And I reckon if someone came up and said, "Hi, I'm an angel, got any fuzzy in May?" you might actually have a couple under the bench, right?
There
might
could be
a
some
couple,
downstairs,
There might be
yep.
a couple left, not many,
Yes.
but there's a few floating around.
Excellent.
Otherwise, they could just drink some of the other Semillon that's floating around there that we do.
Absolutely. Jodie, Damien, thank you so much for coming in for Drink Naked today.
Thanks
Stu.
for having us,
Thanks for having
Stu.
us.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Drink Naked. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If you like what you heard, leave a 5-star review. And if you think you know someone that might like it as much as you, please let them know that we exist. In the meantime, stay tuned for the next winemaker rockstar to come visiting at Naked HQ.